Hello and welcome to another episode of Taylor Talks Comics. Today we have on the docket the Spy vs. Spy Omnibus by DC Comics and Mad Magazine. Stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. So this is the Spy vs. Spy Omnibus. If you're watching this on the Organic Price Books YouTube channel or the Taylor Talks Comics YouTube channel, it doesn't matter. Just please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and comment down below with your thoughts. I do have a Organic Price Books promo code. If you want to save $2 off of any order with OPB, one of the best places to buy all of your comics and graphic novels. You want to save $2 off, you'll use the promo code Taylor Talks Comics. If you're going to order 4 or more books in the order and want to save 5% off of that order, use TTC, ship it together. All right, so this is a Spy vs. Spy Omnibus by Antonio Prohias. And this is collecting all of Antonio's strips for Spy vs. Spy in this nice book. This was previously released by DC. I don't have the previous copy, so I can't compare the two. But I will do a size comparison for you real fast to show you off that this is a omnibus. It is published by DC Comics, but it is a little bit different in size. And the reason for that is because these strips debuted or appeared in Mad Magazine, which is not your normal comic book sized. So you see here's your DC omnibus. It's a little bit taller than that, a little bit wider than it, because it is that magazine format. A little comparison of another collected edition that actually did collect magazines, these Eerie Archives. You can see it's still bigger than and wider than that. So just a little size comparison to show that off. It's a little bit different than your DC Omnibus. It does have a dust jacket with it. So I guess I should have showed that off. The spine here, it's a Spy vs. Spy Omnibus. And it doesn't say DC, it says Mad Magazine, which is very proper. It's the way it should be. And I appreciate that. You don't see that Mad logo on a lot of nice hardcover collected editions these days. And I wish there would be more. I wish there was more collections of Mad content. And hopefully the sales on this will be good enough to get that. Because the EC... Mad was part of EC Comics, but the EC archives of the EC heyday, those rights are with other publishers, but DC owns Mad Magazine. So they're the ones that can reprint any of this material. On the back here... I love the little gags here too, like $75 USA, cheap. $99 Canada, cheap. A little Canadian joke there. But here's another big painted piece by Antonio Prohias. And then here is the inner flaps. Even on one of the inner flaps, you get a strip here of Spy vs. Spy. On the hardcover itself, you'll get this embossed image of one of the spies and the other spy here. The spine is also embossed with the same type of Spy vs. Spy Omnibus with the Mad logo. The end papers are great too. It's a great piece by Antonio Prohias. Here, the end papers on the back are the exact same. But you can see this is his art desk with all these images and the cartoons happening on top of it, with the spies falling off in these little images. You can actually follow the gag throughout the sequence. We get a title page here. Oh, geez. Just bent the page. And then we have Spy vs. Spy Omnibus. I don't read Morse code, but I'm assuming this is Spy vs. Spy because it appears on the title lettering of all the strips. And then here is the indicia with the big picture of Antonio with his a little tribute to him. He was born in 1921 and passed away in 1998. Then we have the Mad lettering, which is very famous. They always worked it out. I forget who started that. I want to say it's like Will Elder, maybe. It was the first guy that really started working within the Mad lettering with another strip. But Antonio Prohias did this, and I guess it was for the Mad logo on Mad 101 in 1966. This foreword is written by John Ficarra. So he writes a little bit about his experience with Antonio. And we get some acknowledgments here, which is kind of like a behind the scenes of how this was made, when it was made, who contributed to it being made, this collection. And we get this nice introduction, which is written by Grant Geisman. So it's a 6-page introduction. So a lot of good like back matter and history. Like this is kind of different than your usual DC omnibus in that regard, because it kind of reminds me more of like what a Fantagraphics release would be, where they did a lot of research and behind the scenes and pulled some like old artwork, and then had a lot of historians work on introductions and a little bit of who the person was and that kind of thing, which I love. I love any sort of comic book history and that I can learn. So these early strips here, which I didn't know this about Antonio Prohias. My experience with Spy vs. Spy was when I was a kid, I'd get like those paperback collections from the library, like the small little paperback collections, and read them, and I loved them. I thought they're hilarious, but I didn't know Antonio Prohias. I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering his name. Background, and the fact that he was Cuban, and he was in Cuba when Fidel Castro was, like the dictator of the communist nation of Cuba, and Antonio Prohias was actually writing anti-Fidel Castro political cartoons, which is amazing. The fact that he had the confidence and the gumption to do that in a time when you're living in a communist state led by a dictator. That's not okay. Like, it's not in America, we have the freedom to where we can do these political cartoons and not have our lives at risk for just making fun of our leaders and whatnot. The easiest example I can give someone comics related would be like V for Vendetta, when the late night talk show host does like the parody of the dictator there and makes fun of him, and then he ends up dead. Like that's the kind of stuff that I feel like while I was reading this, I was imagining Prohias was up against. But then he fled. He fled from Cuba to New York and started working with Mad Magazine. And almost instantaneously, he came up with this Spy versus Spy gimmick, where it was these two characters, one wearing all black, one wearing all white. And it's mostly a silent comic, where every panel you follow it, and they're both trying to kill each other. So like the gag at the end of each panel, one of them will die unexpectedly when they had like the plan to kill the other one, or the other one will pull, the wool over the other one's eyes, or maybe they both die. It's just a funny gag strip, kind of reminiscent of like a Tom and Jerry or a Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, but if it was like more like Wile E. Coyote versus Wile E. Coyote, or Tom versus Tom or Jerry versus Jerry, because they're both kind of that sadistic, want to kill each other kind of thing. And a lot of the later strips would bleed into having a little bit more political commentary of Prohias' time in Cuba, or what he thought of maybe the current government and whatnot. But it never fails to be funny, and it never fails to have that humor to it. And they even kept this is a really well put together book, because they even keep like the intro that was above it intact. Like this was how the page was laid out in the Mad Magazine. They didn't just take the strip and forget the rest. Like it is all intact the way it was printed. And even down the bottom, it has like a little notation of what issue it appeared in and what month that was appeared in. And it looked like these early ones was about 1 or 2 strips per month. This is Mad 71. This would be the first one. It has like the intro, and then since you already know it at that point, if you're reading the magazine, a little bit of another installment in there. But then as you go on, this one has a continuing finger to it. That's a trope of Mad Magazine. That strip continued on for another page. But yeah, as it would go on, they would kind of lose that intro piece to it, and you just get a nice title lettering piece. And the title lettering was always fun too, because it was almost another strip in itself, where he's acting out another scene of them trying to kill each other, and then so it's almost like 2 comics on one page. And that's what I really got from Prohias, especially on this reread of a lot of this material that I haven't read since I was a kid. Here's Spy versus Spy versus Spy. There's a third one involved. Was the amount of there's no wasted space in these pages. It's very much like that Will Elder chicken fat kind of aspect to it from the early Mad magazines, when Harvey Kurtzman was the editor of those, where there's like gags in every little piece, like every little strip. Like you get to look into the backgrounds and stuff, and there's might be little funny bits, which is fun because then every time you reread it, you pick up on little new aspects to it. So like really fun lettering and cartooning, and the fact that it reads so well, being a silent comic from sequence to sequence, like it is like those early Tom and Jerry's or Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner, where those were silent cartoons. You didn't need dialogue or words. Like the artwork is so good that it reads exactly how it should, and you know exactly what's going on. You could even start playing with the title lettering, like the actual lettering itself, a little bit too as it would go on. And then we have a section here. It's the old pro, a little bit more bio of Prohias. This one's written by Nick Meglin. Oh, there's Will Gaines. You can't. Who else is in this picture? William Gaines, Angelo Torres, Nick Meglin. Outside of Victor's Cuban restaurant in New York. And this is what the later strips too, that'd be just taking up a whole page. So to kind of negate the whole upper half that I was talking about, where that was like a cartoon itself, and just make it a bigger strip. So you get to see like the evolution of Antonio's cartooning as well. And then trying to see, I know there's some more biographical pieces in here. Oh, here we go. All right, so here we have a sketch page of the penciled pages of Antonio, which is great to see any of this old stuff. I don't know how much of this actually exists. It would be awesome to see, but then you see the finished form right next to it. It's always cool to be able to compare those page by page. This is Mi Hermano Antonio, and this is written by Sergio Aragones, which is a strip written down here. He's most famous for Gru the Wanderer, but also major contributor to Mad Magazine from the 60s through the 90s, was Sergio. Here we have later cartoons that are not Spy vs. Spy strips, but some Mad content written and drawn by Antonio Prohias. So there's no, you're getting all of Antonio's Mad Magazine work within this book, basically. You're even getting some colored work and painted work in here, which is great. And then back here, here's some like Mad Magazine 376. This is much later than when he started, and he's starting to use different media and ways to draw the strips. Here's another piece here written by Peter Cooper. There was some in that introduction too. They talked about finding some interview with Antonio Prohias and translating it, and that was kind of the impetus of a lot of the biographical content in this book. So these are late 90s Spy vs. Spy strips where there's color involved. It looks like it doesn't look painted. It looks more like colored pencils or what do you call it? I can't think of the type of coloring it is, but you catch my drift here. Here's some articles that Spy vs. Spy featured in. And you even get some ads that have featured in here. Like here's a White Castle. You get a cover of Wired magazine here. Altoids ad. And then here's some covers that have featured in of different paperback collections, which I think I found the one. I think this is the one my library had back in the day when I was a kid that I checked out a bunch. So I remember that being a blue cover. But then, here's some foreign collections of this content. Here's a lot of the other paraphernalia created with these characters, which are super cool. I'd like to hunt down some of these, especially these bookends. These bookends look awesome. Like the fact that you have the white dressed spy here throwing a bomb over the top of these books, while the other one's on this side. But there's those figurines there, a lamp here, mugs, some more figurines. It looks like a board game here. Video games. Looks like Game Boy had two different Spy vs. Spy games. And here's some t-shirts and ties and other stuff that featured these characters. This one is Peter Cooper actually drew this piece. And now we're going to see some different artist interpretations of these characters. Here's an Evan Dorkin piece. It was Mad Spy vs. Spy Special 2011. Definitely Evan Dorkin's his style, his art style, which is great. And here's a piece by an artist I'm not familiar with, but it's Bob Stocky. Very design oriented in this one, and I kind of love that piece as well. This one is written or drawn by Tom Bunk, this two-pager. Here's Peter Bagg, another one of my favorite cartoonists, who did like Hate and Neat Stuff magazine, or comics. I actually have a Peter Bagg playlist on my channel of the Peter Bagg comics, and this is his piece. And then here's Jim Lee. Like, what a strange piece I never knew existed, but Jim Lee did a piece of Spy vs. Spy in there. I love that they included that in there, though. When did he... 2011 is when he did that. And here's a piece by, again, Peter Cooper. So they have a little bit of some pieces in here. Oh, here's the interview. Oh, this is an interview with Jessica Prohias, the granddaughter of Antonio. And then there's the end papers there. So really, really, really cool collection. I highly recommend it for anyone that's a fan of like good cartooning or classic cartoons, comedic comics, or just Mad Magazine in general. So if you're going to try this out, let me know in the comments. If not, just let me know what your experience with Spy vs. Spy is, or Mad Magazine. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget my promo codes. $2 off for any order at Organic Price Books if you use the promo code Taylor Talks Comics. And if you order 4 or more books off of OPB, you can save 5% off that order with TTC, ship it together. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.